Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Beach Fishing Antics. Today what I'm going to do is have a look at the Breakaway Cannon, which is something that I promised to do at the end of my first ever video, fishing down at Dungeness. It was a kind of new thing to me. I was up in Glasgow at the end of last year, visited the Glasgow Angling Centre, picked up a couple of cannons, mainly because as a fixed spool reel user, like this thing here, I find that if I don't have anything on my finger at all, then the end of the finger, you tend to pick up cuts and stuff like that, and it can really get quite sore, especially if you're doing a really long session, which is what I tend to do. If I go fishing, I don't get to go fishing as often as I'd like. So if I go, I like to be there for a good few hours. So what I started using was one of these things here, which is a finger stall. And essentially all you do with that is stick that over the forefinger there, wrap that around, and there we go, and there you've got your hand protected, or your finger protected from the line. Now that's particularly important for people who are using braid. I know a lot of guys use braid right the way through. They'll use 80, 100-pound braid right through. Some people who use a lighter strength braid on the reel, but then use an 80-pound braid shock leader. Now, braid being incredibly thin, obviously, that's going to just make that situation worse. That's going to cut straight into your finger because you're taking all of the tension of the cast on your finger up to the point of release. Now, I don't use braid all the way through. I'd like to use a tapered shock leader, mono shock leader. I find I get a really nice small leader knot with that, and it does give me a little bit more flexibility. There's some give in the end of the line when a fish takes the bait, so a little bit less chance of kind of being a bit aggressive and pulling the hook out of the fish's mouth. But I do like the bite detection of having braid on the reel, so that's something I really wanted to stick with. The problem with using one of these things, though, is that you're constantly putting it on, taking it off, putting it on, taking it off. It's kind of fumbling around in your pocket and whatever. And sometimes you forget, or you've put it down somewhere and you haven't got it with you, and you think, oh, sorry, I'll just cast without, or whatever. And then, of course, you end up cutting the end of your finger, and then you're cursing yourself for the rest of the session. So I just found this, although brilliant, it works. It is a bit of a faff. And then the Breakaway Cannon comes along, which is this device here. Let me show that to this camera. As you can see, it's a kind of trigger system. Now, essentially what that does is that takes your finger out of the equation as far as actually touching the line goes. I'll show you what I mean. Basically, what you do is you attach this to your rod just above the reel seat there. I don't know how well you can see that. I'll try and hold that on with my fingers there. Okay, so you've got your reel sitting down here, and then rather than holding the line, you actually hold this plastic trigger here. And then when you release for the cast, you just release that trigger. What I'll do is I'll quickly show you how that goes. It's really very, very straightforward to put onto the rod. All I did was use just bog standard LX tape. So we'll give it a go. Just kind of like whip that on because I took it off for the purposes of showing it to the camera. Nice thing with using LX tape is that you get that nice bit of stretch in it, so you can kind of stretch it down really nice and tight. And we'll just snap that off, and there we go, and that's kind of one side on. The other side's a little bit more awkward because you've got the actual sort of, it's almost like a bollard on the front, so you've got to kind of work your way underneath that, like so. Actually, you know, the first time I did this, I actually did it on the beach, and it was a lot more of a faff doing it on the beach, I have to say. It's a bit more easy doing it like this. Right, there we go. And I managed not to break anything. Excellent. So there we are. It's fixed just above the reel seat. You can see that on that camera. Okay, so if we then go ahead and just stick the reel into the reel seat. Tighten that up like that. So there you go. Now you can see exactly how it sits. Now I've actually fitted that slightly offset. So rather than being immediately in line with the kind of the anchor point of the reel, it's actually slightly over to the right. Now I find that makes it slightly easier to use. So I actually did that deliberately. I don't know how well you can see. Oh, if I point it straight at the camera, you can see it is kind of slightly offset. It also seems to tension better when you put the line up over the thing. So if I just release the drag a little bit so I can pull some line off. And there we go. So you've got the line coming away. All we need to do is just allow that rail arm to just go around. So you've got it in the kind of position you would normally then be grabbing that line and holding it back, and of course taking all the tension on the end of your finger. Okay, so basically you just bring the line up over that and then pull the trigger down. And what happens, as you can see, is you've got now a loop going up and over the bollard, and that's giving you the tension on the line. So if I then flick the bail arm open, you can see now that that's perfectly held. Now it may well be for some people who are kind of, you know, power casters, or, you know, if you're pendulum casting or whatever, or even if you're using braid straight through rather than a mono shock leader, is that you may want to wrap it round more than once. You may find that it actually grips better. I know braid can be very slippy, but there's no reason why, there we go, I've done that on there, there's no reason why you can't wrap that round twice or even 3 times. As soon as you release your trigger finger, that will just fly off. Okay, and there's literally no resistance to that at all. Now I'm going to end up with a massive tangle, so I will put that to one side and sort that out in a moment. Yeah, so to give you an idea of what it actually looks like on a beach, I've got some footage here of when I first used it at Dungeness, and also some footage on the Humber Wall, just showing the actual casting with it. So essentially, what are my thoughts? Well, actually, I really like it. I'm not a massive caster, as I've said on previous videos. I probably cast about 100, 120 yards most of the time. The one thing that I have noticed is if I'm really trying to cast farther, actually the Canon kind of lets me down. And if I'm really kind of trying to wang it out as far as I can, what happens is my timing goes out the window, and I actually don't end up casting as far as if I just do a straightforward over the head thump. I've found by far that's the easiest method to do. And I think the main reason for that is that instead of holding the line, you're holding a plastic trigger, so you're not in direct contact. And what happens when you're actually casting is that your finger, when it's holding the line, you feel the point of maximum pressure, and that's when you let the line go. Obviously, because the line's wrapped round a metal kind of spindle, and you're not in direct contact with it, you don't feel that maximum point of pressure. So I think maybe some people have kind of struggled to get used to it, and I think that's the issue, probably for a lot of people, is that your timing's got to be bang on. So you've kind of got to focus on when your release is happening through the cast, rather than just relying on the feel of the line on your finger, letting you know when that kind of maximum pressure point has come. So because of that, a straightforward over the head thump, keep it simple, I found works perfectly. And I'm getting casting certainly as far, if not a little bit further than I was before, because obviously that release is an awful lot cleaner. So I think maybe for the kind of the big casters, or if you're using kind of a pendulum technique or something like that, it's going to take a little more getting used to, just to make sure that your timing's absolutely bang on with it. But I think it's worth persevering, because at the end of the day, that's permanently on the rod, and so you don't have to worry about faffing about and losing one of these things. I don't know how well you can see it. I should put it up to the camera just as an example. I mean, that's the kind of damage that's been done to that finger stall, and it hasn't been used that many times. So you imagine that that's a nice hard piece of it's kind of, is it leather or fake leather, whatever. But that's taken a fair bit of punishment, and that could have been on my finger. Using one of those things, I don't have to faff about in my pockets. So all in all, I think a great device. I'm certainly going to persevere with it. And interestingly, I was chatting to a friend of mine who I've mentioned before, Matt, who's just got into sea fishing. After his first kind of lengthy session on the beach, one of the first things he said was, I'm going to get one of those Breakaway Cannons because my finger was killing me. So yeah, if you're a fixed ball reel user, definitely worth giving a go. I think they're only, 11, 12 quid. So it's not a lot of money. In theory, it should last forever. It's well made. And if you don't get the hang of it, at least you've tried it. But I think for the money, it's well worth giving it a go. And if you keep your casting kind of fairly straightforward, I don't think it's going to let you down. So there we go. That's it for me for now. I've got another couple of little videos kind of planned in the pipeline. Off to Norfolk in a few days' time. I'm going to be doing lots of fishing down there, taking lots of film, hopefully lots of fish on camera. So those films should be coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So watch this space. Please do subscribe to the channel. At least then you know when new films come up. And I'd really welcome your support. The views so far have been incredible. The site's only been going for 4 weeks. And we've already we're over 1,300 views on the 4 videos that are up so far, which is fantastic. The feedback that I'm getting from you guys is absolutely brilliant. So more of that, please. And if you've got any kind of suggestions or whatever, then please put them in the comments section, either on YouTube or I post these videos on WSF as well. So by all means, comment on there too. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch up with you soon. Take care. Keep fishing.